Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Allotments Committee. Have we any apologies?
No, we've got no apologies.
Alice?
She's present, but not.
Oh, right, that's okay. Yeah. Declarations of interest. Anybody? No. You're not interested? Okay. And the minutes of the last meeting are to be approved as a correct record. The minutes of the meeting held on June 22nd, on Tuesday 22nd March 2002. Do you say it's correct? Right. So wait a minute. So that's Mark.
Just need a second.
Can I have a seconder for that one, please?
Charlie.
You weren't here. It'll have to be you. Just say I'll second that. We need you. Well, I can second. Can I not second it?
Yes, you
I
can.
can second it actually, because I was, wasn't I? Right. Okay.
Can I just ask about did we get any further with John Hopkins' bequest?
Yes, we did. It's coming up later on the agenda on an update on Notts Lane, South Valley.
And water supplies for Sutherland Street.
That's coming up as well, isn't it?
No, water supply. The water supply for Sutherland Street. They agreed that it wasn't going to shoot until the transfer of the allotment sites had been achieved from to Contact Council.
Okay.
Because it was a significant investment.
Thank you.
So what we've got here for that one is that it's just for our information. It says for information.
That's River Street. That's a new one.
Oh, wait a minute. Waters. Oh, sorry, I didn't read that properly.
I've just got two matters arising from the minutes. Unfortunately, there hasn't been sufficient resources to draft up consultation proposals for the bonfires. So I will hope to do that for the next meeting. And I've given out a rough summary of areas where we could consider planting for trees or other things for the local ecology, and for just for notes so people know where the areas are. So I've circulated those for the meeting as well. So those two matters are arising.
Right. Okay. Now then, the budget. Where have we got the paperwork for this? You'll have it, won't you?
Yes.
Good.
With the notice of the meeting, Gina sent out a copy of the full budget for the allotments. Most of them are pretty much sort of like operational budget headings and or would be normally already committed. There are a couple of areas where we may want to consider additional projects or spending. Specifically for new equipment, we have £1,112 down for that. I've probably got spending of about £200 for the installation of the CCTV cameras at Alkincoats when the hut becomes available. So there is potentially about £900 within that budget heading, which may need allocating at some point during this year. On barriers and fencing, we have just under £4,000 allocated to that. However, out of the work that we know we need to do already, which includes additional fencing to the Basil Street terrace. That's internal fencing, but because of the drop, we would be required to put fencing there. There's perimeter fencing required to one of the plots on Notts Lane, which we've had a look at and just needs quoting for. New Oxford Street, requires a new perimeter fence. That's where the existing plot holder has given up their plot, and it was previously part of their garden. So we need to establish a new boundary and a new access to that plot before we can re-let it. But that will require some perimeter fencing there, as well as some path work. Granville Street also needs the perimeter fencing securing. So out of the just under £4,000 on perimeter fencing, my guess would be that we've probably got enough work for about £3,000 worth of fencing already that we know of this year. The other budget heading is trees, of which there's about £4,500 worth allocated towards trees. I think normally we would keep probably £3,000 for unforeseen tree work as a result of storms. We were quite fortunate last year that we didn't need to do that, but it would be advisable to not commit too much out of the tree budget at this stage, or certainly keep in reserve, say, about £3,000 for any future tree work required. And also, if we can arrange it this year, to do a proper tree survey, or have someone in to do a proper tree survey of the trees on the allotment site. But that would still leave us probably about £1,500 to be allocated on that budget heading. And if there weren't any storms, or we didn't require any significant work, we may have an underspend on trees still there. The last main heading I would suggest is the repair and maintenance, of which we've got about £5,500, just over £5,680. Out of the existing work that I'm aware of, including the wood treatment to the decking and the steps at Basil Street, and also some work to establish proper paths on the South Valley allotment site and divide up that site. Those would be significant commitments. Also recently, we've found out we've got a problem with a large or a significant amount of asbestos on one of the sites that has become vacant, which I've viewed with a contract with Coalition Facilities this morning, and that is probably going to be a significant cost on top of the clearance of that site. So out of the £5,500 that we've already got that we have allocated to repairs and maintenance, I would guesstimate that we've probably got commitments for about £2,000 of that already. Still leaves a good portion.
Where does it say here that it's £5,500 for repairs and maintenance? Under funds.
Sorry, yes, that's the ones that.
Have you just been reading off that?
Yes,
Yeah.
but it's on here.
All right.
So I think the general idea is that if there are suggestions where we can improve allotment sites through the repairs and maintenance or any of the other budget headings, that I think Policy and Resources would probably like, FES would probably like a report from us as to the main budget commitments that we're expecting to do this year, so that they ensure that there isn't an underspend at the end of the year, really, I think, which is what I think we're moving towards.
Alice, can you hear? No, we can't hear you either.
It's breaking up a bit.
You're right. We can hear you now.
Down.
Great. I think it just needs people to talk into the microphone.
She means you.
So it has to be me. Right, sorry, I will endeavour to speak louder into the microphone.
Thank you.
So I don't know if you've got all that, Alice. Basically, those are the four key areas that I see that we could commit funds to. Whilst the first three are probably, well, certainly the first two are probably already got significant commitments. We might need to do some work on developing areas for the other areas of those last two areas, for the trees and for general maintenance and repairs, if anyone's got any suggestions for those.
Have we done that now?
Yeah, I think it probably become clearer as we do the site visits as part of doing that. I think things might become apparent at that stage as to what needs doing on the different sites.
Moving on to water supplies on River Street.
Right, this is a new one in that we've previously been focusing on water supplies at Sutherland Street. Just before I went on leave, I was contacted by Water Plus because they'd identified that there was a water meter at the bottom of River Street, which according to their notes was for the allotment site. I advised them that as far as I was aware, we never had a water supply on the River Street allotment site. But actually having had a look at it, it is quite possible that that meter is for a supply on the site that we just haven't identified. What I'm proposing to do, unfortunately, when I went last time, I didn't have keys for the site, so I couldn't gain access, would be to visit the site again with one of the existing plot holders who's been there, I think, prior to 2007 when this water supply was originally set up, and to see if we can identify a tap or a standpipe on the site. There are a number of difficulties that come from that or a number of difficulties that come from this in the sense that at the moment we don't charge water charges for the standing charge for the site. I think is about £2 or £4 a month. I think it's £48 for the year before water usage. As far as we're aware, there isn't any water being used on the meter. But that would be an additional £48 of cost for a supply that we're not using. If we were to bring it into operation, there would be probably some difficulties in terms of access to the water supply if we could find it on the site, because it's likely to be located within, I presume, I'm guessing, but I presume it's in the plot number 3 somewhere. Which would mean that there's probably only 3 plot holders who would have key access to the gate to get water from that supply. And if we were to install a supply there, or a number of taps, obviously there'd be a cost in that. And we'd have to pipe it through to some of the other allotments, other than giving them access to someone else's plot, which I don't think they'd be too agreeable with. So as it stands at the moment, it requires further investigation, but there is the possibility that Water Plus may be seeking from us a standing charge of £48 per year. They could do investigations with United Utilities as to where the supply was originally for. There would be additional cost of that, which would be £96.38p. And if we were found that if it was found it wasn't for the allotment site, we wouldn't have to pay it. But if it was found it was for the allotment site, we'd have that in addition to those costs. So this is why I'm proposing to actually view the site to see if we can actually find a tap to save us on that cost.
Can I just say, I've lived in Cornwall all my life. I've lived down River Street for a good few years, and the streets are the side. Well, not all of them. And I have never known anybody have water on that allotment. Never. I've never known anybody using water that's actually on the allotment. They've gone home and got water. And they won't like it. Another £48 on the, because they treated them as gardens, didn't they? So they didn't pay anything then. Then they've got to pay something. Now they've got to pay for water, which they've never used anyway. So it might not be very pleasant for them.
Can we not give them the option to see if they want it at a price?
Yeah.
We could. I think in any case, because we don't currently charge water charges on River Street, we'd have, because it's if you divide the 40 odd pounds by 3 tenants, if we were just doing the 3 tenants who currently have access, it could possibly be half again on what they're paying for the allotment. Really, it's quite a significant cost through the year. And that being the case, we would probably need to give them notice that there would be a potential charge coming through on water charges, which we'd have to give them 6 months notice on that. But in the meantime, we could ask them if they wish to have a water supply. Generally, the plots on there are so large, there's enough space to have sheds and greenhouses to harvest their own water supply, which is probably why this supply hasn't been used, I suspect. Whether there's any prospect of using this supply for the Sutherland Street main supply, it's a bit more complicated and probably cost more than actually getting a new supply in from the street. If we were to revisit that at a later stage. So I shall do my visit and update you as goes on from there.
Can we ask them first if they want it? And if they all say no, is there any point in you going looking to find out anything?
I think I still need to establish whether or not the supplies on the site. It then becomes an argument as to who actually initiated the supply on the site, because the site is still Pendle Council's. It's not intended to be transferred to Colne Town Council because of issues with alleged issues with subsidence or slippage on the site, because it's a steep banking and this house is close by. So because of a dispute over that, it was agreed that it wouldn't be part of the stock transfer to Colne Town Council. So it's never going to become our site.
We'll never get it.
Not unless we want it, and we probably wouldn't want it whilst there was a legal dispute.
So why are you going to visit it then?
Simply because we manage the site on behalf of Pendle Borough Council. I think once we've established whether the supply is to the allotments, then it would be a discussion with Pendle Borough Council as of the way forward, whether or not we wish to continue managing that site for them, if we're going to have additional charges.
And final question is, do you have a key for the site now?
I do downstairs, yes.
Surely the people who got the water meter installed must know who they're sending the bill to. Is it going to Pendle Borough Council, or is it?
I think the problem is they've identified the meter, but not the recipient of, or who asked for the meter to be installed. The likelihood, I think, is it's going to be Pendle Borough Council, because they're the only people who are likely to have done that. I think it's probably a site similar to Basil Street. I think it might have been used as a community project previously, because there is some decking and terracing on River Street on one of the plots. And that might be the reason that the supply was originally installed.
It's been the people living around, it's been their gardens. That's what they always thought they were. So we had somebody in River Street, they lived at the bottom house. That biggest one is their garden. It's never been a community thing, it's been theirs. And then there were people in Hill Street who were on the very far allotments with chickens and things, and but they never paid anything. They were their gardens, they said. And that's been that way all my life, as far as I can remember. So, you know, it only changed when we took over, and they're not even going to be ours, are they? We just look after them for Pendle Council.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go.
One more question. Could we not get the water turned off at the meter?
I would think if there's no use for it, then that would be, there would seem little point in raising an account for Cornwall Town Council for a meter that we're never going to use.
Yeah.
Then by turning the water off,
I bet nobody knows it's there, you know.
As far as I know, there's been no usage on the meter since they've monitored it, or since they've found it and monitored it. There hasn't been any usage on it,
No.
so it must be turned off somewhere.
Right. Water, just let me, water turned off, question mark. Right. Okay. Is that it for the water supply? Knots Lane and South Valley allotment sites to consider a verbal report on the land purchase of the access track and update members.
Right. There's two parts to this. Part is the land purchase and part is the legacy or the bequest. In relation to the land purchase, the solicitor was concerned that there was an area of land on the map that we'd supplied them between the land we were intending to purchase and the highway, which would mean that the company would still own a strip of land. I don't think there was any ill intention in this. It's basically because I originally drew the map with the boundary of the land being at the gate which has been installed on the site, when effectively it should go to the end of the garages. I've spoken with Mary Developments and they're quite happy to include that land in with the purchase. I have to redo a draft map to include that land, which will then be sent to the solicitors to draft a land registry compliant plan for the solicitor then do the searches. So there's been a slight delay because of that, but we're hoping to get things moving again shortly. In relation to the John Ogden bequest of the Knots Lane South Valley allotment site, I'm struggling really to when we considered it at the meeting, there was no problem in terms of changing the name of the site. We can do that if we wish to. My only concern was that we needed to establish that the bequest had actually happened and have some evidence of that before we changed the name.
Did we get it?
Well, I made. The bequest was originally to Combe Corporation, and unfortunately, there's no documentation in this building for Combe Corporation.
Does Colin Unwin have the documentation?
He said he did have a note with his deeds, but it wasn't anything official to confirm the bequest. So we don't hold documents for Combe Corporation. I suspect they would have been transferred to Pendle Borough Council. I haven't made inquiries with Pendle yet, but I suspect because of the age of the documents, they may not have them, though that is an inquiry that we can make. I have looked at the Lancashire Record Archives, of which there are a number of wills which have been deposited with them, but this isn't one of them, unfortunately. So it's not within their archives. So the two avenues I've yet to explore are Pendle Borough Council, if they retain any of the old documents, and also possibly if it was mentioned in the local paper at the time, that might be on file at the library. But there's probably quite a significant time of research to do that.
What about the land registry?
I'm not so sure. The documents I've seen for the land registry just really confirm the current owners. They wouldn't necessarily have a record. I'm guessing, I don't know. My guess is that they may not have a record of a bequest, only of the land transfer, because it doesn't really matter to them why someone transferred the land, whether it was a bequest or by sale or purchase, only that the new owner is.
It would probably possibly say who the transfer was from.
We do have an account with the land registry, so I can ask Nathan if he'd make those inquiries for me.
Right. Is that it on Knots Lane and South Valley?
Yeah.
All right. Allotment inspections. Now then.
Right. We've undertaken quite a lot of inspections in the past couple of months. The last lot of inspections was on the 19th of May when we inspected what we could of Castle Road, Cookhouse, George V, Highgarth, Montague Street and Temple Street. A total of 12 letters were sent out for non-cultivation as a consequence of those inspections. And in total for those and the previous inspections, 19 letters of non-cultivation have been sent out. From those letters, 5 plot holders have contacted me and had asked for consideration due to ill health. And one of the plot holders requested to terminate their interest in the plot or possibly reduce the size of the plot to a more manageable size. What I am proposing, there is still some sites which have yet to be inspected, which include Carry Lane, Carr Road, River Street and New Oxford Street. I've handed out an inspection schedule. I'm proposing that we revisit the ones that have received non-cultivation, or I revisit the ones that have received non-cultivation letters on, I think it's June the 23rd. This is correct. Yes, June. I will visit those on the morning of June the 23rd, which is the 19 site plots that have failed. And in the afternoon would do the remainder of the sites which haven't currently been inspected, which includes Carr Road, Carry Lane, New Oxford Street and River Street. We will then have completed all the inspections of all the plots that we currently hold, and we will have revisited a significant proportion of the ones that have previously had non-cultivation letters. From then on, I'm suggesting from that we start the round of inspections again for the Alkin Coats area on the 7th of July, South Valley on the 14th of July, the southeast area on the 21st of July, and the northeast areas on the 11th of August. There's a slight gap because I'm on leave between those times. I've currently scheduled all but the revisits from 2 o'clock in the afternoon on those Thursdays.
So I can go.
Yeah, in the hope that people can attend. And on the sheet, it's got the starting points. If people want to meet us on site, it would be as well just to send us an email if you can, just so that we wait for you if there's any delay or anything like that. But as it stands, we have sent out a significant number of non-cultivation letters. We will follow up on those from my visits this week, and we will complete the round of visits on the 23rd of June and start the next round of visits on the 7th of July.
Excuse me, Eugene, of the letters that you sent out were non-compliant. What sort of replies have you had back from the people that have not, asked? Have you had any replies back from the people saying we disagree? And
I've had one back saying that they disagree, and that was in relation to Montague Street, because the plot holder who has 2 plots on that site had recently moved house, and as you may recall, used to have animals on or livestock on the property. He's removed all the livestock, and he says this is in process of renovating the beds on both sides. It is a very large site, and I suspect, well, I wouldn't want to prejudge it, but I suspect that it still requires significant amount of work when I revisit on Thursday, I suspect. Whether or not that plot holder would consider giving up perhaps one of the allotments to give him less of an area to work on, I think would perhaps be a good idea. But as you're probably aware, most plot holders are very reluctant to give up their plots, even when they've got large areas to manage. I think it would then be up to the committee if they wish to pursue serving a notice for non-compliance. But that might be something that perhaps I do in consultation with Alice, though I think technically it probably should be an officer's decision whether or not, or a decision of the officer and the town clerk as to whether the notice is served as a breach on behalf of the council.
Okay.
Can I ask? Sorry.
He has breached, obviously he has breached, but I guess if you go back and obviously there's a process to follow, and if he's shown some considerable amount of work that's already been done, you know, I think to give him a bit of leeway.
Has he moved a long way away? Is it hard for him to get back to it?
He's still within the borough. I wouldn't say it's too far away. We do have, we've used iAuditor for all of these inspections. The only one that hasn't had an iAuditor inspection is Granville Street because of technical difficulties. But we have copies of all the inspections and all the pictures, and they're available on those files over there if you want to review them.
You said you sent out a letter. One of them replied and said that either terminate or reduce size. Have you made any decision on that at all?
I received their email when I returned from leave, so it was only yesterday that I got the email back. So I have emailed suggesting that we're quite open to reduce the size of the plot if that would help because of the medical circumstances. I'm just waiting for a response back from that.
No. Now then, the Allotment Awards. Won't be any if we don't get a judge.
Yes.
Anybody know the flowers?
Could I make a suggestion? Would David Clamp be a good judge, do you think?
I think you would personally, but yeah. We were talking about him before, weren't we? He's no good judge. He'd be a good judge, actually.
You'll definitely get a straight answer from him anyway.
Oh, yes. Well, there's nothing wrong with being honest.
The closing date for the awards was Sunday, and we have received 5 entries for the various categories. There are 3 entries from people who've applied previously, but we do have 2 new entries. There is the option of, since in the offer letter that we send out for new plot holders, we do advise them that they may be automatically enrolled in the allotment competition. And if we were to write to them again saying that they'd been automatically enrolled, we could include them within the competition if the committee wanted to do that. However, they may not be, given that they hadn't applied themselves to be part of the competition, they may be reluctant to take part in it. So you may be just causing more ill will than goodwill in doing that, but that is an option too.
Alice?
I have rung David Clamp up, but he's been away actually, so I've not got a response from him yet. But yeah, I think he'd be a very good judge. We also identified some outstanding plots when we were going round, and I thought that we might decide on putting them forward for judging, should they be so inclined to do so. And then they can get maybe a special category, i.e. it's a category that we have put them forward for.
Alice, would you say that they've got to say they will comply with our wishes when we say you've got an outstanding plot, can we put it in the competition? What if they say no?
If they say no, they say no. It just
Can't do it.
yeah, it means that we might just get a few more, because is it 6 that we've got so far?
Five.
I can't remember how many outstanding plots that we did see, but I think there were at least one on each of the sites that we visited. And yeah, I think that might just expand it. And who wouldn't want a prize?
All right. Think about that.
I'll arrange to contact the list of people who were assessed as being outstanding, probably after we do the final inspections on Thursday, and see if they wish to put themselves forward for it.
And we were also thinking of having like a question time at the awards, and I was wondering whether Michael Osborne could be one of the people that were an expert, and obviously David Clamp.
What
Don't know
about
whether anybody.
Bill?
Bill?
Bill's fairly
Yeah.
together with it. Brian?
In a worst case scenario, if there's only 5 entries, is it worth having the questions and answer?
Well, there are only 5 entries, but the thing is that there are other people come to the sit down pie peas, aren't there? Yeah, superb pies. You know, so do we cater for those 5, or do we cater for anybody else that might come?
We have ordered the pie, or committed to the pie and peas for the awards evening, so that is in hand from the preferred supplier.
Oh, great! Can't wait.
What date is it, Eugene? Please.
You got to come. It's brilliant. I've never tasted pies like them.
You're a bit elusive there with the name of the preferred supplier.
Well,
you haven't to. You haven't to advertise, have you?
Yeah, I'm not so sure I'm supposed to say they're the preferred supplier, to be honest. The awards evening's Thursday, the 21st of July, and the judging is down as being on Saturday, the 2nd of July. So not that long off, really.
Right. Lost pie.
Can I just clarify, for the judging of the allotments, are you requesting that it is just David that does that, or do you want those 3 names on the question time panel to be the judges? Because we'd have to arrange to see if they were all available for the 2nd to do that.
This is what?
Alice.
Alice, sorry, I couldn't see you for his head.
Does David Clamp have an allotment, a council allotment?
No, he has a heck of a garden, though.
I
Yeah,
just,
and
I
exhibits
just
and-
wondered whether
Oh.
it would be not a good idea to have Michael and Bill as judges, because they do have allotments.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, whereas David would be more impartial.
No, he's just got the park, hasn't he?
Mm.
I don't know what other people think about that.
No, it's a good idea, actually.
I think it might be good to have David and perhaps a member of the allotment committee as judges. So you get,
Oh, I'd love to be, but if anybody else wants to, that's no problem.
We'll get better first.
Do we, if we're having any sponsors for the award evenings, maybe ask somebody from one of them as well, like LBS or somewhere.
Have we got any sponsors?
Then you've got 3.
Yeah. Yes, we've got sponsors, right. As before. Are these the same people as before? Or have we
yes,
got somebody new?
LBS are sponsoring the prizes. The garden centre are sponsoring the prizes.
Garden centre. Where?
LBS Garden Centre.
LBS, sorry, yeah.
So they asked them.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember who they were. Right, sponsors. So. Right, so we're to find a judge and then have some pie. Oh, I can't wait. Allotments updates, please.
There's not much on
I'm
allotments, I'd say. I mentioned earlier that we found asbestos on the vacant plot on Cook House. The plot came back to us because unfortunately the plot holder died. There's a large number of sheds on the plot which need emptying. There is various bits of asbestos within the undergrowth. It seems more overgrowth than undergrowth, which means that we're having difficulty to clear the site. We had a complaint about the condition of the site, partly because of the plants going through a perimeter hedge, and also partly because of the condition of the plot. We have sought to rectify that because of the issue with the asbestos. That's going to delay the process. I have spoken with the person who originally made the complaint, and we have agreed some actions to be taken in the meantime, which will possibly alleviate the situation for her. But I think it is going to be a bit of a slog to get this plot back. Though when it does come back, I would imagine that we would have no difficulty reletting it. The only other complaint I've had was about a tree on Temple Street after visiting the site. The tree was actually outside our boundary and was within the garage site rather than the allotment site. So I've advised the resident of that, and I think they're taking up their inquiries either with Pendle Council or Together Housing.
Sorry. Yes, Alice.
I'm just wondering, I know that there will be a delay on the removal of the asbestos, but has a company been given that contract yet?
The asbestos was found today when our contractor was trying to clear the weeds, basically. Obviously, they had to stop at that. They are contacting a asbestos removal firm for us, as well as a pest control firm as well, to ensure that there's no infestations of the sheds and stuff in the meantime whilst we're removing the asbestos.
Thanks. Thank you.
Anybody? We're okay. We move on to items for future month's agenda. What have you got?
I've got one specifically. Unfortunately, we should have had the election of co-optees on the agenda this time round. As it is, it'll be on the next month's agenda or the next meeting's agenda.
Sorry? Alice, oh, Alice, yes.
We were going to talk about bonfires at one point.
Yes.
Can that go on the agenda for next time?
Yes. I knew there was something else and I just couldn't think of it. And bonfires. Right. With that, with bonfires and allotments, do we have a specific time of year in which they can, say 2 months of the year, in which they can do bonfires but no other time, or what?
We were going to do that consultation, weren't we? To no bonfires at all, or whether they were happy with the agreement now, which I think is only nuisance rather than a particular time, but Eugene can say about that.
Yes and yes, I think you're quite right on both of that. It is just nuisance, referred to as nuisance within the allotment agreement. The guidance is really advising tenants not to have bonfires during the summer, and I think it's only from, I can't remember the exact dates off the top of my head, but I think it's from like the start of November to the end of March, something like that. They're allowed bonfires at that time, but there's a whole set of guidance that's given to them as to how they should conduct those bonfires, which includes consulting with other plot holders, being aware of the weather conditions and various others. There's about a 10-point plan before they have a bonfire, because they could still have a bonfire at that time and cause nuisance, which would be a breach of their agreement effectively. So they have to take that advice into account.
So would we be going back and saying, well, it's the nuisance and we leave it as it is, basically, probably?
Discuss it next time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but I don't want to know now. I'll talk to you later about it. Right. Have you gentlemen anything you want bringing up? No? No. That's that one. On the back. The date and time of the next regular meeting is the 13th of September at 6:30. In this room, I presume. So that's the end of the meeting. Thank you for turning up.
Yeah,
And especially you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I couldn't see her at all for your head. I didn't know if she'd, I was waiting.
Bye.
Yeah, well, they could see you, but I couldn't because his head was there.
I'll be there in person soon.